All right, this is J. Raw, show number 193. We're closing in on 200. 193, this is May 9th, 2017. And Tim and I are coming back from a break where my schedule didn't line up very good with the show, so I had to postpone for a little bit. But we're back now, at least for this week. Guest, I'm working on booking guests, so we have saw one book today, so we're starting to get some stuff rolling there. But we want to head out there so I don't get too rusty, and I do have something new to me that I wanted to discuss. And Tim, you have an issue that you wanted to bring up. I have a similar issue, so we both have to talk about that. But if you remember back some time ago, I don't remember when it was, we compared the crop versus full frame.
Right.
Remember that?
Yes, and you took the pictures. Yeah. Trying to show on your deck or back porch, I guess.
And that was when I got I don't have a lens on this one right now, but this is a Nikon D500. I bought it used. It's a full frame Nikon. It does have the battery grip on the bottom, and I generally like to buy these really right stuff L brackets. It allows you to mount it either way on your tripod. And it just makes the thing feel like a brick. It does add a good bit of weight, but this is a full frame Nikon. I think with the battery pack, it'll do 7 frames a second if I don't remember. It is a 12 megapixel camera. It is a fantastic camera. I really liked it. 12 megapixels in today's standard is a little weak with that, but it's still a good camera. A decent dynamic range. Decent at high ISOs, 7 frames a second is not bad. The problem I've had with it is for sports. It's kind of a take the good with the bad, or how you say what is it? One thing's good, one thing's bad. Let's say
right. The trade-off.
There you go. It's a trade-off. So I got this back whenever I think my kid was swimming. So it's been a while since I had it. And the good thing is swimming indoors, the lights are horrible and everything. It was better with noise than the camera I had before, which was awful. So the noise performance went up. What went down though was my reach. So before with, let's say, a 70-200, and I'm wanting to shoot with the 70-200. This lens here, 70-200 2.8, with no teleconverter or anything like that. I could reach maybe the 4th lane, and I tend to want to fill the frame as much as I can with the subject, and not have them be a speck in the thing. So I could go before the D700. I could go maybe to the 4th lane if I'm coming from the side. With the D700, I'm stretching it to get to the 3rd lane. It's not as good. And that's because a crop sensor is squeezing all its megapixels into a smaller section of the lens and packing it all in that thing. And it's not a digital zoom, but it's in effect, it's tight, putting those megapixels in a tighter spot. Where a full frame is spreading it out. Full frames are great for everything but sports and wildlife, basically. And they have the advantage of generally lower noise. So that's good. But I've always been pining for, or been thinking about, should I go back to a crop sensor? I don't want to trade off and lose the noise performance of a full frame, but should I go back to a crop sensor? So I've been looking at the Nikon D500.
Okay.
It's in, if you're a Nikon fan, it is what is thought to have been what was going to be the D400, the replacement for the D300. They must have skipped the D400, just like they skipped Windows 9, and just went straight to D500. But it's not necessarily a straight replacement for a D300 because they have beefed up some areas like the body. It made it more weatherproof and done some stuff like that to make it more heavy duty. It was running around $2,500, which compared to his big brother, the D5, which runs around $6,000, and they share the same focusing system. So it's going to have just as fast focusing. I think it's a little bit less megapixels. It also is a few frames a second slower than the D5, but D5 is crazy expensive. If you're making money off of it, or just can have lots of free money for your hobby, all that's a camera to look at. It does have the built-in grip, which is nice. But what I ended up doing, I was watching this came up somewhere. Where did I see this? I can't remember. But I'm going to show you here in just a second, Tim. The Nikon D500 went on sale. So they dropped it from $24.49. It's a little bit off. $24.49. They dropped the D500 with the grip. And the grip was $350. So you got the grip and the body for $1,800. Which is not bad, versus $2,449 for the body only, and another $350 for the grip. So I said, I've got to jump on that. And they also, I'm showing here now, they also have the D750, which is an excellent machine. And they have the D18, which is, if you're doing landscape and that kind of stuff, it is the high megapixel king for Nikon. So I ended up getting the D500.
Okay.
And I got the grip.
Yes, you like that.
I do like the grip. I'm not sure I'm going to get the L bracket, but this camera, and I don't. So a couple of mistakes I've made. I'll go over those in a second. I don't have a whole lot of images to show you with it, but the camera itself. This is going to be a camera review. It's not going to be that. There's plenty of those out there. Has a little bit deeper grip here.
Okay.
So my finger.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks pretty thick there.
Yeah, your fingers feels really good. I like to just hold this thing sitting on the couch. And then
that just means you need to get a better life then.
Yeah. Turn it on its side. It's a little bit different. The grip is not exactly the way it is when you hold it here, but it's still got that deep feel, and it feels really good. And it feels really solid. It's 10 frames a second, almost 21 megapixels. The focusing system is, I know you Canon and Sony photographers may disagree with me here, but this is the absolute winner. And other than its big brother, the D5, which shares the exact same focusing system, this is the fastest focusing camera on the market today. Hands down.
I'm not going to question it.
And I took it out last night and shot a softball game, and the focusing is insane compared. I didn't think the D700 was bad. This thing is just absolutely insane. It's nails it all the time. Noise performance, actually, it's about on par with the D700. So crop sensor, really close to what my full frame D700 was doing, which is pretty good. It also has for raw images, with this, Tim, the buffer for raw images, and how many images you can shoot before the camera has to pause. Take a guess.
15.
200.
Wow.
And you know what happens when you hit 200? I haven't done it. I've just seen it. When you hit 200, it actually is not filling the buffer. It's a pause so you don't damage the camera. If you hit 200 and then let off the shutter and hit it right back again, it'll do another 200.
Wow.
So I don't shoot. I mean, if you're going to shoot 200, you might as well just videotape the thing.
Yeah, really.
But if you're a sports photographer, what you're doing is you're going, brr, brr, brr. Right. You're exactly. Spraying, as the action happens, because I would hope to get a frame or two or more before the key action, and then a few frames after it. You want to shoot through that action because you never know when that key spot's going to be. I have so many times let off the shutter a couple of frames too soon and missed the key point of the action. So with this one, you're maybe shooting 5 or 6 in a row and spraying, and then you let up, and then something else happens and you're spraying again. And you never, with this camera, even shooting in RAW, have to worry about filling that buffer up. Mm-hmm. Part of that is if you're shooting with the new XQD cards. Have you seen those?
No, I don't know if I've. I haven't had any. I have seen them or heard of them, but
so that I don't know.
It's the same size as an SD card, isn't it?
Very, very similar. So this camera actually takes an SD card and an XQD card. So they're very similar. I'm going to show this one. In size, they're very similar. The XQD is a little bit bigger. It is thicker. If you probably not going to be able to see that, but it is a little bit thicker. The difference is while this SD card would do 150 megasecond, this XQD will do 440.
That's nice. So you got a lot of transfer speed there.
A lot of transfer speed. Now, you want to hear what I did and how I messed up?
Sure.
You ready for that? So,
how big is that card?
This is 64 gig. So, 64 gig and 128 gig on the other one. Okay. On the SD.
Now, I guess I got a question. Does it record at the same time to both of them? So you have like or is it just overflow to the second one?
So you can do overflow, which is how I have it set up. You can do record to both. You can do RAW to one, JPEG to the other.
Okay, well, that's good. So you got a lot of options.
You have a lot of options. So I have a multi-card reader here. That's probably, I think when I bought it, it said it can do 52 different card types or whatever.
Okay.
So I go outside, I shoot some shots. I want to come inside and do a test of it, take my card out. Yep.
No card in it?
No. It has a card in it. My 52 card reader, which I've had for a couple of years, can't read XQD cards.
Can't read that. No.
So I had to go back outside, and I made it to where it records the both. So I put it on the SD card so I could come back in and take a look at it. Last night when I shot the softball game, I had it on overflow. So XQD first, and then the SD card afterwards. So when I figured that out, when was it? Last week, Saturday or whatever. Figured out, crap, I got to get a new reader because I can't read that card.
Right.
And I remembered back with Danny Diamond. You remember when he had that Lexor, whatever you call it?
Yes.
Card reader that had the bays in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go get me one of those. So I go to Amazon. I ordered one, and sure enough, it says it can read XQD and all that kind of stuff. So I got it.
There you go.
Guess what? It doesn't come with any of the bays in it. It's blank.
Oh my God, it's blank. So
so still can't read them. So still can't read the card. So this comes in various. I think this is the H1, the workflow H1. They also have the H2, which has, I think, Thunderbolt, which is even faster, but it's quite a bit more expensive. So these in each bay, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little connector there for USB 3, and then out the back is USB 3.
There's one USB 3, right?
So you can, let's say you only shoot compact flash, you can get 4 compact flash things in here,
right?
And do that. You can put there's one for USB. You can put USB ports in it. You can mix and match however you want. And
so how much are those modules?
They're somewhere between $20 and $40 a piece.
And the tower itself was?
Tower itself was like $50.
All right, so you're talking about $100 to relatively populate it,
or more. Yeah. So I have all the things to populate it coming tomorrow. So starting tomorrow, I finally will be able to actually look at the images coming off this camera.
You couldn't hook the camera directly up to the computer?
I probably could if I wanted to go through all that trouble, yeah. But I have, I think, 1,000 images from last night.
Oh my goodness.
So I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to wait. It does eat up the battery a little faster than some other cameras. And that could be because I'm using a smaller battery. I bought 3 batteries. You can have 2 at a time versus the other one that I showed you. This does have a little joystick on the back.
Okay.
Right there. What that allows you, so it has 153 focus points. Okay. All over the place. From edge to edge is focus points. And they're almost all, I think over almost 100 of them are cross type. Again, the specs go online. I'm not doing a full camera review, but that little joystick makes it where you can easily move the focus group, from one section to the other, doing that. Now I started using my 7200, which I was mentioning earlier. I can reach second base and fill the frame. First base, of course, pitcher's mound, catcher. third base from where I was standing, I couldn't quite fill the frame, and of course the outfit field I couldn't. But back to a crop sensor, I'm able to go to all those different bases I just mentioned and all those different positions and fill the frame with it, which was awesome. And so last night was I was so happy to be back with a crop sensor. And I think, what you have to do is what type of shooting are you going to do the most of, and then get the tool that works for you. In a perfect world, I would have this and an 810 for whenever I want to do anything but sports and wildlife.
Right.
But I shot a soccer game. What finally made me do this was not only the sales price, but I shot a high school soccer game with the D700, which it performed great. But again, soccer fields are massive.
They are.
Yeah. And shooting with the 70-200, even with my 1.4 teleconverter, reaching to the other end of the field, and not long ways, width ways, was difficult, and I couldn't fill the frame, so I ended up cropping some of those images. And when you're starting off with a 12 megapixel camera,
right? Yeah, you're losing a lot.
Yeah, you're really coming down to about 5 megapixels once you crop it a vertical down to horizontal.
Right, and then if you want to enlarge it, forget about it. Now it's a bad picture.
So although I would tell you that back in the day when I was shooting with Nikon D4s? I think it was D4s. No. I don't remember what it was. It was a 4 megapixel camera, D2H, that's what it was. Nikon D2H, 4 megapixel camera. So I've blown some of those up. I think actually, this one right back up here, that's a 20 by 30. That's from a Nikon D2H, 4 megapixel camera.
Wow.
So, I'm sure if you got really close to it, it could be better. But that's not a bad image, just of my younger son. And so you still can do pretty good. But imagine 20 megapixels already tighter in, just so many more options. And then, of course, the frame rate of this thing is just insane. So, and it can do, it won't be as wide. It won't shoot as wide as the full frame, but it's really good.
Right. But I remember when I used to have a full frame camera, I think my the lowest lens I had probably was 24-105, and now I have a 16-50, which I normally use, and the 16 is effectively the 24. So I still have the same that I always had. I never had a wider angle lens than that, and I probably wanted to get one, but glass back then was a little bit more expensive than it is now that for a full frame camera.
So I only have two DX cameras, crop sensor. I mean, 2 DX lenses, crop sensor lenses. All the other one will work on full frame, and that is this one, which is a Tokina 12 to 24.
12-24.
Yeah.
I would love to have that lens because they sell that for mine. How do you like that lens?
Actually, it's much better than what I thought it would be. It wasn't that expensive. And at 12, there's some distortion. But if you just bring it down a little bit, it's not bad. So on a Nikon, which is a 1.5 crop, this is going to be, a 18? 18 to 36, something like that, which is not bad.
What is it's a 1.5 on the Nikon, you said, right?
Nikon's 1.5.
Because Canon's got different ones. They're not the traditional 1.5. They got like a 1.6, I think, or
a 1.3 too, I believe.
1.3, yeah.
And then the other one is this 35 millimeter 1.8 lens that I have on here right now. So that's the only 2 DX. Everything else is can do both or whatever. So I'll still use the D700.
Right.
But
if you're going to do landscape picture, that's probably the right camera for it.
Yeah. The thing I was impressed with is even with this teleconverter on, which of course knocks down the 7200 to f4, but does give you more reach. This camera, the D500, just really did great with focus and was really locking on. Anytime there was a problem, and I'm shooting through the fence because the dang umpire would not let me leave a crack in the fence at the dugout. I don't know how a ball is going to curve around and come back and hit me if I left a 6-inch gap there. But the guy was a rule stickler. So I had to shoot through the fence, and every once in a while, the camera would grab the fence.
Grab the fence on for focus, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing, if I remember correctly,
and maybe you haven't noticed this yet, is the depth of field differently? Like if you want to blur at the background, I always thought that the full frame would do a better job of that than the crop sensor.
I think it does. I think if you're shooting both at f2.8, that the full frame is going to have a little bit better, a little creamier depth of field.
Right.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned you having lens trouble, so I'm going to mention
yes.
mine, and you can talk about yours. So the camera, I would love to shoot some of those bigger fields of lens. I would love to shoot some of those bigger fields with. I'm not sure I would have shot the baseball with it last night. Is this Sigma? Let's see. Put it in the camera. Sigma 120 to 300, 2.8.
Okay.
Now I'll take this off. I mean, look at that.
That's beautiful.
Look at that. That thing's massive.
Yeah.
Don't drop it, Mike.
What's the filter on that? Is it 82?
105.
105. Wow.
105. Yeah.
Yes. It doesn't. The screen does not do it just. That's huge.
Yeah. It is.
How heavy is that? That's pretty heavy too.
I don't handhold it. If I'm going to shoot it, I'm going to have it on monopod.
You got it on monopod. Yeah.
But it is having some kind of focus issue. And I've had the focus issue for a while. It's not just this camera. I've had it on most of my cameras. Now Barry says size of the hubcap. Yeah, it is massive.
Yeah, small Volkswagen.
So like many of the modern cameras, the Nikon D500 has a autofocus mechanism, autofocus fine-tune mechanism. So you can put the camera into live view mode. If you don't want to use, there's other methods you can do for fixing your autofocus. But if you want to do it all on camera, there's a autofocus fine-tune mode where you go through live view, which is the screen on your back of your camera, and you zit the focus, and then it will figure out what the offset needs to be, and it'll do that. And what most people say is run through that multiple times and then figure out from those multiple times what is the best settings. Because let's say you do it once and you get a -8, and next time you do it you get a +2. Like, okay, something's not right. I need to do this more times. So I tried to do that with this one because I'm going to show you some images in just a second, and you'll see that I don't need to have that up anymore. Hold on. You'll see that it's off just a little bit. So if I go over to, let's go to the photos. We'll go to this one. And so this is our bluebirds just hatched, by the way, just fledged. And this is Papa Bluebird, which he's going to be out of focus anyway because the focus was not on him, and I had a very shallow depth of field. But if you look at the Bluebird, none of him is really intact, sharp focus. And that is this lens just having some kind of struggle. And if you looked at the ground where you could see where was it front focusing, was it back focusing, what was going on, it's nowhere. It's just not focusing right.
It almost looks like the end of the wooden board is what's in focus more than the main subject.
Yeah, that may be it. It's hard to tell. I have one more. Let's go to this one. So this is actually the scene before the shot that I just did. So baby bluebird with Papa coming flying in, just right. If that had been a half a second later, it'd been perfect. Yeah. But just a tad off, and he's got a little bug in his mouth coming down for baby. But again, the focus is a tad off. So I went into the live view to do the update and the adjust this lens. This Nikon 120 to 300 doesn't focus through the live view mode. It's not the latest version of this lens. It's an older version. So I think there's, your lens has a CPU inside of it, and this lens CPU needs a firmware update, and that's not a usable user firmware that can be updated. So I'm gonna have to send it in and have Sigma or whoever else does this to do the firmware update and update it. But it's a great lens, so I'd love to get it working. I mean, 120 to 300 2.8 is a great length for sports.
I would agree.
Yep. And you're having a lens problem too, aren't you?
Yeah, my 1650 2.8 suddenly stopped zooming from 16 to 24. It goes 24 to 50 with no problem. But once I try to zoom down, it feels like it's coming up against a hard stop. The lens does have on it a lock for the lens. When it's
pulled all the way into 16, I can lock it so it doesn't come out. And I've never had an issue with it, like sliding in and out when I didn't want it to, if it's in the camera bag or anything. But suddenly it just stopped, and I don't know what it was. Suddenly it got a little tight, and now it won't do it at all. So it feels like the lock is jamming it. So I just sent it in for repairs last week and see what they come back. I actually almost bought a replacement on eBay. They had my camera with that lens, another, I think a 35 to 150. I think that's what it was. Another flash and 2 batteries, and it went for $747. I had bid $735, so I just missed out on it. But it would have been, the lens itself is $900.
Yeah.
So I was like, then you have all this other stuff. I could have used the extra flash. One of my batteries is dying, so definitely the extra batteries would have been good, and an extra body would have been nice. So now I actually started looking, because now that I had looked for this, it dragged me into something else. So I was like, well, let me look, because Sony has the A99, which is my camera, but with a full frame sensor in it. I was like, that would be a nice separate body for myself.
What is this? What is that Sony running at A99?
I knew it's probably about 1900.
Okay. So in the range of this D5. A D500.
And Sony just announced a new body, the A9. Mm-hmm. Now, you know, 8A's been talking about the A7 he has, and the A9, I was just looking at the comparisons on it, and you talked about a bigger buffer, 241 on the raw buffer.
241?
And 362 on the JPEG. So and I've said for years, I don't know why they can't just stick some RAM in the camera, that it would buffer it up to it, so that, as opposed to just writing directly to the card, write it into some flash memory in the camera that is very high speed, and then you don't have to worry about it. I'm sure that's what this is doing.
Of course, it's a $4,500 camera.
Oh yes, it's an expensive camera. That's well out of my because once again I'd have to replace all my lenses, and this is not something I'm.
Wait. Step back. Why would you have to replace all your lenses?
Because this is the mirrorless with the A7. I have the A77. This is which is a lens mount. This is an E lens mount, which is all more compact. So the A7, the A9 are all full frame sensors, and they're smaller cameras and use all new lenses, which is.
So Sony has taken over Nikon as the number 2.
Oh really?
Yeah, I think Sony is now number 2.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, somewhere I heard that. So if I'm wrong, oh, sorry, but I've heard that somewhere. Sony has taken over number 2. In Nikon world, and I don't know the Canon world, but maybe if you like me, if you bought some DX lenses, and I would not buy many DX lenses, even as a crop sensor shooter right now, the DX for Nikon is the crop sensor lenses. I would not buy many of them. They're all F mount. But the crop sensor ones means that on a full frame, your camera is going to go into DX mode. So I would like to see Sony, lock in on, and this is our mount.
Mm-hmm.
And because as a Sony user, you want, as a camera owner, if you bought Nikon, if you're in the Nikon system, the Sony system, the Canon system, you want to buy lenses that are going to live with you in your life of that brand, as much as it can. I don't want to go from a Nikon D500 to a Nikon D810 and have to buy all new lenses.
Oh, I agree with that.
Yeah. So and I don't think Canon does that either, where they have all kind of different mounts. Do they?
No, Canon's I think is the same, but this is because Sony switched over several years ago to the NEX system, and then now it's the A7, A9, and that changed with the mirrorless to this. So I think the camera system I have, the A77, I would be surprised if they really replace or enhance those cameras. I think that's probably near the end of its life, sadly.
Yeah, so, okay, here's some of the specs on the new A9. And again, remember, this is a $4,500 camera. 24 megapixel. Says stack CMOS. I don't know what that means, whether that's what everybody does or not, but stack CMOS. High-speed continuous shooting of up to 20 frames a second. It's got a little 5 next to that, so there must be some caveat. 693 point wide area phase detection autofocus. I'm not sure what if that's the same as what I have in 153
Right.
things. And of course, the Sony's have the built-in image stabilization there.
Right. I love that.
Yeah, it is a good feature. And it's Sony E-mount, like you said. Where's the little 5? It's probably way down here at the bottom. No, it's on some other page where you got to go figure what that is. Footnotes.
Yeah.
I had to click that 5. High continuous speed at all shutter speeds higher than 125, 1/25th of a second, and AFC mode.
So autofocus continuous.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Obviously, you have to have a high enough shutter speed. Otherwise,
Right.
if you have a 1/30 of the shutter speeds, you're not going to get it.
Yeah. So when I first got my D500, went on the deck, it was dark, and I set it up and I started taking photos. And I said, "This doesn't feel
Click,
very fast."
Click.
Yeah.
Click.
Oh yeah. You can't shoot at 10 frames a second when your shutter speed is 110. You know, 1/10th of a second. Yeah. Yeah, Sony is. Somebody asked me in our sports shooter group. So we have JPEG Raw has a sports group. They asked me if I was concerned about Nikon, if I was going to be leaving Nikon, and I said no, I'm not. I'm not concerned about Nikon. They're number 3. They probably will not retake number 2. Sony is probably on its way to eventually being number 1, but there's room for 3 or more players.
I think so. I think the top 3 have been pretty steady. I mean, after that, you probably have. I don't even know who the people are after that. I would say Leica, but that's probably way down there, or Panasonic and Olympus. I think they tried to make a comeback, but Sony did the right thing. They bought out Minolta, which I think had a great camera system. I'd been using Minolta for years. Matter of fact, some of my glass is still Minolta that I use. My 85 1.4, that's Minolta, and I absolutely love that. I liked it a lot more when I had it on my full frame versus because now I got to stand pretty far away to get pictures. You try to take pictures of my 4-year-old daughter when you're standing 20 feet away, and she doesn't know what's happening at that point.
So it also reminds me of think back, Tim, and I know people are watching this from around the world, but think back in the 80s or even before the 80s, 70s in the American car industry, and I think my dad either drove a Ford or a Buick, something like that. And the quality of car you had, and then all of a sudden you had this Toyota and Honda coming in, and the thought was, those are cheap, no good cars, but they quickly got better. They innovated much faster.
Absolutely.
And then the fear became, can Chrysler and GM and Ford survive? And there were some other players that didn't survive. Can they survive and do that? And I think if you look at it today, those companies, those 3 big ones are still here.
Mm-hmm.
Chrysler's still here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So those 3 are still here. And I would bet you that their product is light years better than it would have been had it not been for the Toyota, Honda.
Oh, absolutely.
All those
competition
guys,
is good.
That those guys drove the Ford, the GMs to be better than they would have been otherwise. And I think Sony's doing some of that to Nikon, Canon. So will they survive? When you have a disruptive player come in, not everybody survives. But at this point, I don't see any reason why Nikon wouldn't. Now, does that mean I would stay with Nikon forever? No, there's no one has my business forever.
Right. It's just you have a lot of glass, and really my lenses are lasting for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I've replaced a lot more camera bodies than I have had lenses.
I will tell you,
that's really what it comes down to.
We had an informal questionnaire in our sports group about what do you use to shoot your sports, and I was a little disheartened that most of the people said Canon, and there was probably as many Sony people as there were Nikon people in that list.
Well, I'll tell you, when I go out on vacation, I always look to see what kind of cameras people have, and I see a lot more Sony and Canon than I do Nikon.
Yeah. Well,
and then again, you see a lot of people with their phones instead.
So you
don't see people with iPads at least anymore. At least I haven't seen somebody like that.
That's good. That's a good thing. So you look at me. Everybody, photography in a lot of ways is personal. Mm-hmm. It's what works for you. That's
Absolutely.
why there's so many different things. You have, Canon sells gobs of different cameras, Nikon, Sony, they also different types of cameras, and then different configurations. Like I always like to get the battery grip. Some people don't like that because that just adds weight. My mom would not like that. It adds weight and bulk and everything else to it, and they want it more compact. And Sony's perfect for that. It's so much more compact. I like that grip because I spend a lot of time shooting vertical, in sports. So, and having the same feel vertical that I have horizontal is so nice. And I like the beefier camera. It doesn't have to be super heavy, but I like the beefier camera.
I never used, and I think I never used a camera grip on purpose because I'm afraid I would like it.
Yeah.
And I think that's my fear, that it's something I would want then.
Yeah. The other thing, of
One
course,
of these days I'll get it.
The other thing it does is it adds, I have a battery here and I have a battery inside. So
yeah, that's the nice thing. Plus you have the shutter in the right location when you're taking that vertical picture, which I really do like that.
It is really nice to have that. So that's my thought on the D500. It is probably the best camera I've ever owned. I love this thing so far. I did fantastic last night. I just need to get a card reader so I can actually get these images off there. And at 21 megapixels, I'm going to be burning through some storage pretty fast.
Oh, you will be.
Yeah.
You will be.
Because I looked down. I knew I was taking a lot. I looked down.
It's a never-ending rabbit hole.
It's like, wow, I have gotten a lot on there. I think I'm right now shooting in the uncompressed RAW, and I think I'm going to switch over to the lossless compressed. This does have, I'm sure your Sonys have it too. It's a touchscreen back.
No, I don't have that. I do not have a touchscreen back.
And then, of course, the thing comes out.
Yeah, mine does that. Tilts. Yeah. I did read the A9 now has a touchscreen. Sony has been very lacking on that in all of their cameras, and that was one of the big complaints people had.
Yeah,
so I guess they're finally doing it. And
it's a pretty high resolution monitor too. So last night, as I was taking some of the shots, I would show the guy look what I got here. Some of the players.
What size screen is on the back? About 3-inch.
Yeah, so whatever that is, put it to my face.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the normal.
What does that measure to?
The size of your face. Actually, it's pretty big compared to your face.
It is, yeah. So that's the big news for me. If you are a Nikon shooter, I'd love to hear from you. I don't want to hear from you, Sony people.
I think you're going to be a loser in this slowly.
Well, we already are. We're third place now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And AD is shooting in a Sony for a long time now. He's the one that tried to convince me to get the A7, and I just can't pop for it.
So, I showed this earlier. Let me show it again here. One of the things that got me to finally get off the fence and buy this new camera was Nikon has a deal going on right now. It is the D750, the D500, and the D810. Barry says he's Nikon. Tim says Sony.
Sorry.
Chuck's Canon.
I said sorry.
Well, I knew you were Sony. So the Nikon D50, 750, 500, and 810 are all on sale. With the grip, they're $900, $650, and $1,000 off. Then if you got the kit, which includes the grip and a lens, you're saving between $1,200 almost and $1,700 versus the price it was just a little bit ago. So they didn't mark up the price and then knock it down and say, hey, look, savings. Right. And the one thing I have not found anywhere is when this stops. So if you're wanting one of those cameras, get at it before it runs out. There also, I just noticed when I pulled it up tonight, there's a few other smaller ones like the D3400 that are on sale. This could be Nikon clearing inventory before they release some new stuff, or it could be
quite possibly
that number 3 slot is not, fitting with them very well, and they're doing something to push some inventory. I don't know, but I took advantage of it and got the camera. And now I got it right as all my friends, my kids have been out of sports, but all my friends' kids' sports have just ended. The game I went to last night was a doubleheader. So I can't wait to get these images off because the ones I took in the last 10, 15 minutes were at ISO 1280, 12,800, and I want to check those out and see how the noise performance handled. But that was the last 2 games of the season. They're done now.
Jeez.
Yeah, so I got to find some other stuff. Shoot some more of those bluebirds.
My son's still got another
Six soccer games left this season, then that's over.
All right, last 6 games. Is it
Six more
once a week?
Yeah. Actually, he's on 2 separate teams, but we end, I think, around June 10th. I think is our last game.
Yeah, you know what I'd love to shoot is some of those Spartan races or color races. Some of those ones that are running through mud and fire and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I can get close without
getting dirty.
Yeah, without fear of getting the camera all
I look
messed
at some of those races, and I what are they calling you? Said Spartan, but I didn't.
Spartan is one of the names I've heard.
But I've seen some of those, and I'm like, yeah, no way.
I'm not going to run it.
Dead.
No. I'm going to walk up to the.
Gonna watch it.
And Chuck says in Minnesota, all the sports are just starting there.
It's because the snow finally melted.
So, I wanted to talk about crop because I think I mentioned we did that show on full frame when I went from crop to full frame. I'm not leaving full frame. I'd love to have a full frame 810, really high megapixel camera for landscape and that kind of stuff where I don't really care as much about the shutter speed. And I was thinking as I was driving home today, when you think about what is it that you shoot the most, when you're thinking about what gear should I get, what lens should I get, we all have holes in our lens selection. What camera should I get? Some people who've gone full frame, they're done. They're not going back to crop. But somebody like me who's debating whether I should have gone back, if you look at your images, like you go in a Lightroom, you say, show me all my images, and you look through them and you somehow can, if you have them sorted well, decide, wow, I shoot 80% of my shots are sports versus 20% are landscape. But I started thinking, wait a second, when I go to shoot sports, let's say I'm at that event I went to last night. I shot over 1,000 images in the 2 hours I was there. So if I just use that as a guide, it's not always that high, but if I just use that as a guide, it's 1,000 images an hour, right?
Yeah.
But if I go shoot landscape and I'm out there for 2 hours, I may only shoot 100, 150, maybe 200 images. So if you have to look at this as far as time commitment, how much time am I spending shooting this versus shooting that? It's not the only way to look at it as far as number of images, because you're shooting a lot more images for one event versus the other. So it could be that I'm spending 80% of my time shooting landscape, but it's only 20% of my images. In that case, I wouldn't have gone to crop sensor. For me, I knew I spent a lot of time shooting stuff, wildlife and sports. All right. So, Tim, we got 2 photo contests. We have one in the regulars group, one in the beginners group, and then we do the photo review show with AD. I was looking at I don't know if you heard about this controversy, and I want to talk about this. And one of the reasons why, one of the excuses I use for not entering our contest is you hear about the guy who owns, I guess he's the owner of Shutterfest. And his name is Sal Concada.
Okay, now.
Okay. He owns Shutterfest, which I guess they give away lots of prizes. And I'm going to show you some of the stuff here now.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So he won. Let's go to there's an article here on Petapixel. He, in addition to being selected a grand prize winner, he won first place in 5 of the 16 categories, second place in 4 categories, and third place in 2 categories.
Jeez.
So he plays very well. Now his images are good, so I there's that. But he won 5 of the categories and the overall winner. And of course, he says it's a blind judging. The people who are judging have no idea whose images that you're looking at, that kind of stuff. But if you're the owner of the contest, I would suggest maybe you don't enter the contest.
Yeah, not with that many images either.
Yeah, and because you run the danger of winning.
Yeah,
and especially if you're good. This is a grand prize winner. He won this one right here with this one right here. And his name is down at the bottom, Sal Concada. You ever watch the TV show Band of Brothers? It was on HBO, and I think later they released it somewhere else.
Loved it.
Yeah, love that show. It's a great show. There was a scene there where the redheaded guy, I can't remember what his name was. He's been on some shows since then, like Billions, I think, on Showtime right now. He was the guy who eventually became the head guy in charge, but he was started
Winters.
off Winters.
Yeah,
Yes,
Robert Winters.
Winters. He came across one of his sergeants or whatever who was gambling with some of his
That's
people.
right. Yes, I remember the scene.
And he told the guy, never put yourself in a position to take from those people.
Right.
So never play cards against those people who are working for you, the privates that are working under you, because you might win.
That's right.
It's fine if you go there and you lose and they take some of your money, but if you're playing and you win, now you've taken from them, and they're already spending a lot. They're
Absolutely.
yeah. So you don't want to take any more. So that's what's happened here. He's entered his own contest, and he was apparently good at it. He's a good poker player, and ended up winning a whole bunch of them. And so,
that's a pretty interesting picture there.
It is, and so
I don't think I could be standing there as the bride and groom.
Oh no, you would have to Photoshop me in there. Yeah,
Yeah, Photoshop me in. Yeah, that's it.
yeah. So we'll go through a few others. I'm gonna have to let me shrink the screen so we get the full image in. This is another one of his. He won first place in this category. Well, that's a good image. Yeah, nothing there. I don't know if we don't get to see all the images, so whether it was worthy of first place, I don't know, but it was good. This category, he didn't win. So these are good photos entered in this. No, he did. That's him too. So that's first place right there is him too. These images are good. All these winners are good. Some creative. That one he did not finish first place in the landscape. Portrait. Nope, he didn't win that one. Well, that one's good right there. I like that one. Animals, he didn't win that one. He said he won 5 of the 16. He didn't win that one. These are good. Anyway, what are your thoughts there, Tim, on someone entering their own contest and winning a whole bunch?
I think you're going to prevent people from joining in the future.
Yeah.
That's a bad precedent, I think.
Yeah, I think, it's going to, even if you were completely above board and you had all the judges come out and say, heck, we didn't know who we were judging on. We didn't have names attached to the images, which is what he says. People are still going to doubt you. People love conspiracies.
Yep.
And people are going to doubt and say, there's no way you win first place in all these places. Because let's look at this right here. So this is Portrait Seniors, okay? Top one is him, first place. Second place is here, and then third place there. Photography is subjective, all right?
Mm-hmm.
You may decide, I like that first place one. I would have voted that one first place too. I may decide, heck no, this third place one's even better. So even if the judges were honest, and we have no reason to believe they weren't, even if the judges were honest, you're going to have people who are going to like one of the images better than his and think there's no way that it wasn't rigged.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
So I think your best bet is just not entering.
You're going to... I think you wind up reducing traffic to your site because of this.
Yeah. Wow.
Because like you said, people aren't going to believe it.
Yes, we won that. I wonder what the prizes were. To our judges. Let's see, they don't tell us what the prizes are. Oh, well. I don't know what the prizes are. I have to look them up later. But if he's the owner of the thing, hopefully he didn't win his own prizes.
Yeah, if he gave it to the next, even if you give it to the next person, I still don't.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Well, that's all I had for tonight. Anything else from you?
No, I think I went over it. I'm looking to go shooting the Milky Way. Up as soon as I get my lens back and we have a good Saturday. A friend of mine told me about a place out east on the island where about 3-4 o'clock in the morning. He showed me some pictures that he had taken out there of the Milky Way. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm like, that'll be a nice opportunity.
So you're going out to Long Island?
Mm-hmm.
Are you shooting out over the water?
Over the water? Yeah, it would be right off the beach.
Okay. So shooting out that direction, there's not a whole lot of light pollution, right?
Nope. Well, relatively speaking, yes.
Yeah. I mean, you might have boats and stuff out in the water. What about the stuff behind you? Are you getting too much?
No, because this would be all the way. This would be. I think he said it was out of East Hampton, which is from Manhattan. It's about 150 miles.
Okay.
So it's a pretty far distance.
So
or 100 miles, I guess.
All right. So you're going to drive 100 miles out there?
Yeah, it's about 70 miles east of me.
Okay. Drive, an hour or so out there. I don't know what the traffic is.
Hopefully at that hour there's none, because it'd be 3 a.m.
Or red lights or back roads. I don't know if it's 70 miles an hour the whole way, but it's going to take you an hour to an hour and a half to get there at least.
Hour and a half. I figure an hour and a half.
So you're going to be doing this at what time of day? 3 or 4 in the morning?
3 or 4 in the morning on a Saturday,
Right.
Friday into a Saturday.
All right. So you're going to be leaving around 1 or something like that. And then shooting for how long?
I don't even know. Probably an hour and a half, I would figure.
Yeah. Are you driving back afterwards, or you get in a hotel?
No, we drive back.
Okay.
It's a long out. It's too expensive to stay out there in the Hamptons. I couldn't afford that.
That's true. Well, interesting. I can't wait to see some of the pictures. When you come back.
I'm hoping we can set this up. So,
has he done it before?
He has been out there. His friend has been out there a couple of times, and they've taken the picture. So that's why he showed me where it is. It's off not a pier. It's I guess a boardwalk. They have the lighthouse out there that's in the background on it. So it just looks phenomenal, and I'm hoping it comes out the way like what I've seen in the pictures. So
yeah. Awesome.
But I think there's several people. He said it can get crowded out there with this too. So.
Oh, okay. So a lot of people know this.
I think there's a lot of people. Yeah.
Well, New York has a lot of people.
Yes.
All right, sounds good. When are y'all doing this?
I got to get my lens back, so I'm hoping within the next month or two.
Okay.
So we just talked about it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Good. Sounds awesome. And I'll have some pictures eventually from this D500 whenever I get a card reader, which should be tomorrow. Because I know when I was leaving the game, everybody was saying, when are these going to be up? Them thinking, okay, I'm leaving the game at 9:00, and they're wondering what time tonight I'll have them up. Like, well, one, I'm not even going to look at them tonight, guys. So calm down. Two, I don't have a reader, so I won't even be able to look at them until Wednesday. And I don't want to get into it with them. They're like, what? These are friends. These are guys from work.
Right.
That's what I'm doing. I'm not doing this for money. But so I saw them today, and they're like, hey, when's those photos going to be up? I said, I got to get a reader. I know it doesn't make any sense.
They just don't understand.
Doesn't make any, well, I understand from their point. What do you mean you got to get a reader? You bought a camera, you can't even read the images from it. I know that's a kind of a dumb move, but that's where I'm at. So I'll get a reader. It's coming tomorrow. I mean, I have the thing it goes in. I just don't have the modules to fit in there to actually read the data.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, all right. So that'll be a show for tonight. If you came in late or want to watch it or get the recorded version without the preview, the pre-show and the post-show, or want to look at a previous show when we did with last time with the guy who shot for Amazon and for Kohl's. Want to do all that? We are on iTunes, YouTube, and Vimeo for video. We're on Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podomatic, Podbean, and Google Play Music. And Podbean is actually where I'm starting to move a lot of the files to be hosted so that I'll never have to worry about the website going down and not being served, although that's not really a problem, but I'm fighting problems I don't have right now. And so that you can get from all those places for the audio. We'd love to have you come out and join in our Facebook group. I mentioned the sports group, but let's look at, we first have the regular group, JPEG to RAW, is the group. You go to facebook.com/groups, JPEG to RAW, and join there. The theme this month is bokeh, and join in by the end of May and put your image there. The album is usually at the top of the group, and that's the easiest way to do it is through that group. You can also come into our beginners group if you're more of a beginner and join there. I don't have an album up there, so I'll be doing that tonight or tomorrow. And the theme for this month for them is going to be open. So it's going to be anything you want. If you're a sports shooter, we also have a sports group here. We don't have a lot of members, so it's not hugely active. But if you're into sports, come out there and join us and start posting so we can make it active. Love to have you out in that group. It does not have a photo contest since there's only 40 or so people in that group. But we'd love to have you come out there. And if you don't want to, that says April. Let's refresh this. Hopefully it still says April, doesn't it? So I got to update that. To do that, don't go right away. I'll fix this, but hopefully by the time you see it. But if you don't want to join Facebook, but you still want to enter the contest, we have it on our website, jpedderall.com. Go to photo contest entry. And then you have either the main group or the beginners group. You can enter either one, and it'll say what the theme is underneath it. Love to have you come out there and join that. And then we will review some of the images through our photo review show, which is done once a month. And that, of course, is also on iTunes and Vimeo. It's only released iTunes, Vimeo, and YouTube, only released in video format. So if you want to watch that, we've now done 11 of them, so almost a year, where AD gives a lot of feedback, a lot of constructive criticism or constructive comments and that kind of stuff on how that image could have been better and what's right and what's wrong with the image. So watch those shows once a month. They're not a set time just yet, usually on a Wednesday and usually toward the end of the month. But 11 of those shows so far. So that's it for tonight. Until next week, keep it raw. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.